to something kind of interesting today.
Oh, yeah.
Films that Hollywood kind of wants to pretend never happened.
Yeah, they'd love for these to just go away.
Yeah, these controversial films, the ones that stirred up so much trouble that they basically tried to erase them from history.
It's wild, right? Like, these films, they really capture the anxieties of the time and the taboos, the things people just weren't talking about.
Yeah, we've got everything from, like, graphic content that might make you want to look away to films that challenge religious beliefs and just push the boundaries of what people thought was okay to show on screen.
Yeah, the range of controversy is really broad.
Yeah.
Like, you have Faces of Death, which got a reputation for being really shocking.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of it was actually staged.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like playing with that line between real and fake. And then you have films like Viridiana and Last Tango in Paris.
Ooh, Last Tango in Paris.
Yeah, that one's definitely infamous.
I can only imagine the conversations people were having about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then.
And then there are films like Do the Right Thing and Cruising,
Yeah.
which, tackled some really complex social issues.
Yeah.
But then they faced accusations
yeah.
of, like, maybe inciting violence or perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
So it's not just about shock value.
Right.
These films actually brought some important issues to light,
Absolutely.
but in a way that made people uncomfortable.
Yeah, making people think about things they maybe didn't want to think about.
What's interesting is that a lot of these films faced, like, attempts at censorship, suppression,
Oh, yeah.
but those efforts kind of backfired
They totally did.
and made them even more infamous.
It's like that forbidden fruit thing,
Yeah.
You tell someone they can't see something and suddenly that's all they want to see.
Oh, yeah, it's human nature to be curious about what's hidden or forbidden.
Like Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom, for example.
Okay.
It's considered one of the most extreme and controversial films ever made.
Oh, wow.
It's got graphic and disturbing content,
Yeah.
but it's meant to be a critique of fascism and power structures.
Okay.
But it was so extreme, it got
Yeah.
banned in multiple countries.
Wow.
Some people were even arrested for distributing it.
That's intense.
Yeah. It proves your point about censorship sometimes backfiring.
Yeah, for sure.
Ecstasy is another good example.
Oh, yeah.
It starred a young Hedy Lamarr,
Oh, wow.
and it broke new ground
Yeah.
for its portrayal of female sexuality.
Okay.
And that was super daring at the time.
Yeah.
Lamar's husband was so scandalized.
Yeah.
He tried to buy up and destroy every copy in the film.
So he basically launched a publicity campaign
Right.
by trying to suppress it.
A wholly backfired.
Yeah.
You can't erase something that people are determined to see.
That's so true.
The Good Earth. It wasn't actually banned,
Okay.
but it got a lot of criticism
Yeah.
for its casting choices.
Uh,
They used white actors in yellowface
right.
to play the lead roles.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how far we've come in terms of representation and cultural sensitivity in film,
Right.
but also how far we still need to go.
Totally.
It makes you wonder if these films would even be that controversial today.
Yeah. Good question.
Like, what was shocking then might be completely normal now.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do our values change over time?
Think about Deep Throat.
Yeah.
It was this huge case
Yeah.
in, the battle over obscenity laws.
Mhm.
It sparked all these debates about pornography.
Right.
But now, I mean, it's not exactly mainstream.
No.
But it's viewed more as, like, a historical artifact.
Yeah. A product of its time.
It's a good illustration of how what we think is acceptable or shocking is
Yeah.
constantly evolving.
Definitely.
And The Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
that faced a lot of protests. For its portrayal of Buffalo Bill,
Right.
people were concerned that it perpetuated stereotypes
Uh-huh.
about transgender people.
Yeah. It was a complicated issue.
But it also got critical acclaim,
It did.
won 5 Academy Awards,
Yeah. Including Best Picture?
and Best Actor for Anthony Hopkins.
Right.
So it sparked important conversations about gender identity and mental illness.
Exactly. It shows that even films that are controversial
Yeah.
can have both positive and negative impacts.
Right.
They can challenge us and make us reconsider our beliefs.
And here's something interesting.
Okay.
A lot of these films actually had a lasting impact on cinema.
They did, despite the backlash.
They paved the way for new genres, pushed creative boundaries, and influenced so many filmmakers.
It's true. It's like they left their mark on history.
Do you have some examples of how these controversial films actually shaped the industry?
Sure. Take Fritz the Cat,
Okay.
the first animated film to get an X rating.
Oh, wow.
Its content was shocking at the time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it opened the door for adult animation as a genre.
Huh.
You can see a direct line
Yeah.
from Fritz the Cat to shows like South Park and Family Guy.
A cartoon cat as a trailblazer. Who would have thought?
Right.
What else?
Sweetback's Badass Song.
Okay.
It's credited with helping to launch the blaxploitation genre.
Okay.
While it was controversial for its depictions of sex and violence,
Yeah.
it gave black filmmakers a platform, and it explored themes of racial injustice that were rarely seen in mainstream cinema.
These films, despite the controversy, they really pushed boundaries.
They did.
And made space for more diverse voices and stories.
It's like they were the rebels
Yeah.
who ended up changing the world.
That's a good way to put it.
Peeping Tom is another great example.
Okay.
Initially, it was met with disgust,
Oh, really?
but now it's considered a masterpiece
Huh.
of psychological horror.
Oh, wow.
Its exploration of voyeurism and obsession was groundbreaking, and it influenced tons of horror films.
A film that was once too disturbing
Right.
can become a respected classic.
It shows how time and perspective
Yeah,
can completely change how we view art.
that's so true.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
It is. You know what's interesting to me?
What's that?
It's like we focus on the scandal,
Uh-huh.
but we miss the bigger picture.
Yeah.
These films are like time capsules, you know?
I like that.
Glimpses into what people were afraid of, obsessed with
Right.
back then.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why we tried to bury these stories in the first place.
Pink flamingos, for instance.
Oh, yeah, that was a wild ride.
It's deliberately outrageous, pushes all those boundaries of taste.
John Waters. Right.
Not exactly known for subtlety,
No, not at all.
but it's more than just shock value.
Right. There's a satire there,
Uh-huh.
a celebration of the outcasts, a big middle finger to the establishment.
I think it was banned in a bunch of countries.
Oh, it was. And in some places, it still is.
Wow.
But it became a cult classic.
Yeah.
A lot of people see it as a subversive masterpiece.
Some films are just too wild to be tamed.
That's for sure.
And it makes you think about censorship in general.
Yeah.
Like, who decides what's art, what's acceptable?
Those are the big questions.
And what does it say about us when we try to silence certain voices, certain perspectives?
Right. It forces us to look at those uncomfortable parts of ourselves.
We've talked about shock value. We've talked about censorship, the impact these films had.
Yeah.
But what about the people involved?
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Making these films, starring in them, it couldn't have been easy
No, not at all.
to be at the center of all that controversy.
Like Maria Schneider,
Oh, yeah.
who was in Last Tango in Paris.
Yeah.
She was profoundly affected by the film.
Especially that butter scene.
Right. The infamous one.
I remember reading that she felt exploited,
Yeah.
betrayed by the director, Bernardo Bertolucci.
Yeah. It sparked a huge conversation
Uh-huh.
about ethics in filmmaking.
Yeah, like what responsibility did directors have? Right, towards their actors.
Exactly.
And that theme comes up again and again
It does.
in these controversial films.
Like Linda Lovelace.
Oh, from Deep Throat.
Yeah, she later claimed she was coerced into making the film
Wow.
and found the whole experience exploitative.
It's a reminder that behind all the controversy, behind the shock value, there were real people involved.
It's easy to forget that.
And their lives were changed
Forever.
by these films. It just adds another layer to the whole conversation.
It does. It makes you think about the human cost.
Yeah, the cost of making art that pushes those boundaries.
Exactly. We need to think critically
Mm-hmm.
when we engage with controversial art, to consider the context, the motivations, the potential harm.
So it's not just about watching it and being like, whoa, that was crazy.
Right. It's about asking those deeper questions.
Like, why was this film made? What were they trying to say? Who might it hurt?
It's about being thoughtful
Yeah.
and understanding that these films are products of their time.
Give me another dose of cinematic controversy.
Okay, how about In the Realm of the Senses?
Okay, I'm ready.
It's a Japanese film
Okay.
by Nagisa Oshima,
Uh-huh.
and it explores erotic obsession.
Sounds intense.
It is very intense.
Okay.
It's got unsimulated sex scenes that were considered extremely graphic,
Wow.
especially back then.
Yeah.
It faced a lot of censorship and bans,
I can imagine.
and even today it's still controversial.
But it's also been praised for its artistic merit
It has.
and its exploration of human desire,
Right.
sexuality.
It divided people, for sure.
It sounds like it.
It did. That's what happens when you push boundaries.
Yeah.
You challenge those preconceived notions of what's acceptable.
We've gone from graphic content
Uh-huh.
to sexual taboos.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into political controversy. I sense a pattern.
There's definitely a theme here.
Like, I'm curious. Yellow.
Oh, yeah, that one's interesting.
It's Swedish.
Right.
It's got this unique blend of politics, sexuality, and a documentary style.
Yeah, it caused a big uproar because of the nudity.
Okay.
And the way it explored social and political issues in Sweden.
It even faced legal challenges and censorship in the United States.
It did.
It went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Talk about a landmark case for freedom of expression.
Wow.
The court ruled in favor of the film.
Oh, okay.
But the controversy just shows how much we struggle with the limits of artistic expression.
Right.
And the role of censorship.
It's like every time we think we've pushed the boundaries as far as they can go, another film comes along and challenges them even further.
That's the nature of art. Yeah. It's a constant evolution.
It speaks to the power of cinema.
Absolutely.
To reflect, to challenge, to change the world around us.
Even the films Hollywood tried to erase, they've left a mark.
On film history, for better or worse, it's so important that we don't just pretend these films never existed.
I agree.
They're part of our cultural history.
Right.
And they offer valuable lessons, even if those lessons are hard to hear sometimes.
It's about looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
And understanding how these films reflect who we are.
It seems like a lot of these films, they actually broadened what was considered acceptable on screen.
They did, in a way.
They opened up conversations about sexuality, race, political dissent.
Yeah, they pushed those conversations forward.
So it wasn't just about shock value.
No.
They were agents of change.
In their own way, yes.
What other films, maybe not on this list, do you think should be part of this conversation?
That's a great question. There are so many.
Right?
It's a huge topic.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Natural Born Killers, Kids.
All great examples.
All those films pushed boundaries.
They did, big time.
Provoked strong reactions.
And they still resonate with audiences today.
Yeah.
Decades later.
They tap into something primal, something unsettling.
It's that confrontation with the uncomfortable realities of the world.
It's fascinating.
It is.
You know, we could talk about this forever.
We could.
But we are running out of time.
Seems like we've only scratched the surface.
Wow, we've covered so much ground just talking about these 17 films. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really just a starting point, right?
Yeah, for thinking about how film kind of reflects those societal norms.
And challenges them. Yeah, definitely.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what do you think is like the biggest takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about these films that Hollywood tried to bury?
I think it comes down to understanding how our culture has changed.
Okay.
You know, these films, even the ones that are hard to watch, they give us this insight into how our values have evolved, what we consider taboo.
They're like these, barometers or something of like cultural anxieties showing us how things have shifted.
By looking at them, by thinking about them, we understand our history better.
Yeah.
And ourselves, I think.
It's not just about watching and being shocked or entertained.
Right.
It's about using these films to start a conversation.
A deeper conversation.
About who we are, where we've been.
To confront those uncomfortable truths. To really question what we believe.
These conversations are so important.
They are.
For growth, for understanding.
Individually and as a society, yeah.
These films left a mark on cinema, even if Hollywood tried to erase them.
They did, a big one.
They pushed those creative boundaries. They got people talking about things that mattered. And they paved the way for so many more stories to be told.
Stories that are more diverse, more representative of who we are.
Yeah, the complexities of the human experience.
Exactly.
And it reminds us that art isn't always supposed to be easy.
Right. Sometimes it's supposed to make you think.
Sometimes it's supposed to make you squirm.
To challenge you, provoke you.
To see the world differently.
I couldn't agree more.
And on that note, what films from today do you think will make future generations cringe,
Yeah, or admire. That's a great question.
What will those films say about us?
It's something to think about, for sure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
Into the things that interest you.
And a little controversy never hurt anyone.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the history of controversial cinema.